Top 3 mistakes local metal bands make. Let's go. We're going to start off with a big one, probably the biggest one in my opinion, and it doesn't get talked about enough. And that's not collaborating with other music artists. Collaborations are an absolute game changer. They've been one of the most beneficial things for my music career personally. I've been able to work with a lot of great musicians in my local music scene, a lot of bands, and even some in different countries. And for whatever reason, your typical local bands, they're just not up for that, and they're really missing out. Firstly, having another band on your song will give you a release radar boost over on Spotify. Now, if you submit your song over on Spotify for artists for playlist consideration, your song is going to be added to your listeners' release radar. This is great. This is a cool little way to get some extra streams and kind of, push the song. However, if you have a properly added feature on the song, you're not only going to be on your followers' release radar, but also the collaborators' followers are going to get your song on their release radar. So this can be huge depending on how big the band is. I mean, if it's a smaller band, it's going to be a small little bump. But if it's a pretty big band or just a band with an active fan base, you're going to get some more eyes and ears on your music. You're going to get some more streams. And this can, kind of push your song more in the algorithm and can get on those ever so important algorithm playlists. Secondly, if you pick the right artist, it's going to help elevate your song. My best songs always had a good collaborator on it. Letting another artist or musician add their own little touch to the song, especially if you handpicked them, that's going to be the thing that can take your song to the next level. Now, sometimes letting somebody else work on your song can be hard. I had this issue for a very long time. Anytime somebody would, try and add a new idea to my song, I'd be pretty quick to shoot it down. But if you do your best to not get attached to the original, demo or idea, I promise you, getting the right collaborator on your song can really elevate the song overall. And lastly, it's a really great way to experiment. I think of my music where, I'm a male-fronted vocalist. I'm the only member of my band, but I am the vocalist as well. I can only sing. And having, a vocalist from another band come on the song gives me opportunities to do things like have scream sections in the song. So for like a breakdown or like a heavy verse, I have the ability to add that and see my vision fulfilled because I collaborated with somebody. Or even the song I'm currently working on right now, I have, I wanted some female vocals and I'm collaborating with a female vocalist and I'm being able to see that vision, go through. Without collaborating, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I wonder if a lot of these bands don't collaborate because a lot of them feel like they have to perfectly recreate the songs that they recorded live, which is going to go perfectly into next reason. And it's, the big mistake that local bands do is they have like underproduced songs. I'm going to say that with, quotations because some bands, you can get away with it. You're super talented. It works for your vision. But like 90% of you guys really need to have your songs produced better. It seems like a lot of you limit, the amount of tracks on the song to the number of members you have. So if it's a 4-piece band, you got one guitar part, one bass part, the drum part, one vocal, and then that kind of has that signature local band sound to it. And you're not doing yourself any favors by limiting yourself to that. Again, some people can get away with it, but when you compare your band to other bands that are doing well right now, you don't have to like these bands, but Falling in Reverse, Spirit Box, Architects, bands like that. There's like these layers added to their song. There's, ear candy. There's like these little things that they add to their song that just take it up to that next level. And if you're not doing that on your music, it's going to have that kind of local band sound to it. And on top of that, if you're not having your tracks edited, which I would lump that into producing, it's going to, you're going to suffer on the playlisting side and even the organic reach, You got to remember, a lot of us forget this. I forget this too sometimes. Your music is for other people. If you're taking music seriously, music's not for you. Obviously, you need to make music that you enjoy and like, but you got to remember, there's somebody else listening to that music. And, whether you want to admit it or not, the majority of people want to hear nicely produced and edited songs. And you don't have to go crazy. I know music YouTubers have been out there saying editing is, the boogeyman, it's this terrible thing, but reality is editing with restraint, that's going to be the thing that can elevate your song. I think of my music, what I'm doing right now, the chorus of a song that I'm working on. The rhythm tracks, there's no editing going on, but the verse, I have some editing going on, I have some punch-ins going on because I really want it tight, and if I didn't do that, it would kind of sound a bit sloppy. And then the breakdown section, there's pretty much absolutely no editing. It's just like a single bar, there's no cuts, there's no edits, and that works. And that's what I'm talking about with editing with restraint. Now, vocals, really well edited vocals, that's kind of the standard. Obviously, you could edit with restraint, but, 8 layers of vocals, I highly doubt they're all going to be super in tune, super tight. So you definitely want to make sure your vocals are edited. Again, a very small amount of you are going to be able to get away with no editing, but when you don't edit your tracks, you're going to end up like Avenged Sevenfold. A lot of fans did not like their most recent stuff, and it's because they really pulled back on their editing, and they're kind of getting pretentious. I love them. They're an awesome band, but they're not going to be remembered for that stuff. They're going to be remembered for City of Evil, and that stuff was all edited, so something to think about. The last big mistake, and this is usually the final nail in the coffin for local metal bands, is they don't take social media seriously, you know. I'm not active in my local music scene as of late, but I used to see the local bands, you know, kind of come and go. And, you know, I remember a band, you know, they've been going at it for roughly 10 years, I think, maybe on and off. And, you know, I think the thing that was the final nail in the coffin was they were stuck on Facebook. You know, they did a ton of touring. They were kind of late to the game with Spotify, but they stuck with Facebook. They had some very, like, okay posts. They never moved on to, you know, Instagram. They never moved on to TikTok. They never did, you know, the thing that you need to do as a music artist, and that's embrace social media. I know none of us signed up to be, you know, content creators, but here we are. It's part of the job. You don't have to do anything crazy. You could just do like a cringy, you know, TikTok slideshow, and, you know, somebody in the comments will be like, hey, I'm going to go check this out on Spotify. You know, that's happened to me, you know. You don't have to go crazy. You just have to take it serious to some degree. And if you end up, you know, like the bands that stay on Facebook and never leave, you're going to get left behind. You know, it's the same thing with, you know, bands that never left MySpace. They kind of got left behind. So you really got to take this social media thing seriously. I know nobody wants to hear it, but if you're not taking social media seriously and you're a local band, you really need to. And that's going to be it. If there's a mistake that you know of that local bands make, leave a comment below. I'd like to reply to it, maybe through a viewer's comment video. Thank you so much for watching.